Yeah, if you want to go get going.
Yankees up 2-0.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome everyone to our 5th episode of the Soul of the Skull. Today we will be looking at the Vikings combine and top 30 draft visits. We will be starting off first with Will Levis from Kentucky, quarterback. He had 5,876 yards, 46 touchdowns, and 25 interceptions over 4 years. I personally don't think the Vikings will get him, but you never know what will happen in this draft. He could fall there, but I know Sam doesn't like the idea of having him on our team. But
not a big Will Levis guy. I don't think he'll ever in his entire career be a top 10 quarterback. That's just my opinion, but there's a lot of people that think he should go number 1 overall. I don't personally agree after watching a lot of his games. He performed well at the combine and well at his pro day. Kind of bombed the interviews with teams, but we'll see what happens. I don't think he's going to go very far in the NFL, though.
Yeah, I also will just say, before I kind of delve into him, that some of these players we talked about last week we looked into draft prospects. Again, so some of these players are going to be repeating. So if it's a repeating player we talked about last week, we're going to try and keep it quicker then, and we're going to look hopefully more today into players that we haven't talked about as much yet. Also, I will just give a quick background here. Over the combine, which was back in March, at the beginning of March, I believe, was the NFL Combine, where teams were able to talk with players. So we have a whole list. So that's where some of these players are from. Also, you get to visit 30 players, max of 30 players before the draft. So that's also what this comes from, is players the Vikings have been visiting with over the past couple weeks. So that's just a slight background of, we're not just pulling these names from the blue. The reason that we're going to talk about these people today is because we know for a fact the Vikings have interest, at least, at these people. Doesn't necessarily mean they'll take them, but at least we know that they have some level of interest within them. So as far as Will Levis goes, I'll also keep it kind of simple since we kind of voiced our thoughts on this last weekend and other previous ones. Will Levis seems like he has the physical tools. At least I think he has the physical tools to be able to be a quarterback. He just has some mental struggles within the game. He's not great at making second reads. He panics. He can't get away from pressure, but it's not really a physical issue per se. It's more just mental. He just has some mental, how do I say it in a way that's not like bad? He's got mental slowness in the game of football. So I think that's what some people have the problem with, is he's got tools. We saw him at his pro day launch some bombs, but that really doesn't mean anything if you can't scramble, if you can't notice that your first read's covered, so you have to move to the second. So I'm okay with Will Levis, but not if they trade up for him. If they trade back and he's available, that would actually be great. Or maybe if he was there at 23, depends how the board shakes out though. If there's other great players there at 23, then I'd look to either trade back, or I guess Will Levis is okay. But if, how do I phrase it? I forgot. My train of thought's gone. I think you guys kind of get the picture right.
The thing for me is he's got all the physical tools. I think that he is physically in better shape than a lot of NFL quarterbacks that are currently in the league. However, the reason those quarterbacks that may not have the physical tools that he has are better than him is because they have that mental piece. That's the thing that separates, the college players from the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
So yeah,
completely agree with that.
So yeah, with that being said, I think we're about prepared to move on. Again, we're going to keep Will Levis pretty simple since we've talked about him in previous episodes as well. So Big Lou is going to be presenting all the players today because we want to know if he mispronounces them. So he's going to present us with our next player, who's also a quarterback.
Yeah, we got quarterback Anthony Richardson from Florida, 3,501 yards, 24 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, plus 1,116 rushing yards, 12 rushing touchdowns over 3 years.
There. So this is another guy that I think shows all the physical tools. He's a big, fast quarterback. He reminds me a lot of Lamar Jackson, the way he runs. However, there are some worries about his arm talent. 24 touchdowns across, 15 games that they play or whatever. with 15 interceptions, it's not very impressive, but his 1,000 rushing yards and 12 rushing touchdowns in the last 3 years was the most impressive part. And honestly, I like him better than Will Levis just because Anthony Richardson has that dog mentality. He wants to play more than anything else in the world. So I would prefer Anthony Richardson over Will Levis.
Your Lamar Jackson comparison was actually spot on because on the NFL.com they have their prospect list and whatnot. Lance Zierlein's NFL comp is Cam Newton, who is also pretty similar to Lamar Jackson in just the way that they play. So yeah, I mean he summed it up pretty well. He's got all the physical tools, great arm strength as we saw at his pro day, but sometimes accuracy is definitely a problem with him. Teams are definitely going to draft him not looking at accuracy, things like that, but they're going to draft him for the upside. He has huge upside, but he also does definitely have a floor to him that it doesn't pan out. They would definitely have to trade up to get him. I also want to make clear that Anthony Richardson was a combine. The Vikings talked to him at the combine, which was over a month ago. So that's a lot less recent than some of these other players are. Just want to make that one clear. More than likely, they're not going to get Anthony Richardson, but if they trade it up, I'm all in for it. I absolutely love it, but I just don't think it'll happen. But yeah, we'll just have to see where he falls in the board.
Up next here, we got Dorian Thompson-Robinson from UCLA, also a quarterback. He had 10,695 yards, 88 touchdowns, 36 interceptions, and 1,827 rushing yards and 28 rushing touchdowns over 5 years.
So this is another guy that I would compare to a Cam Newton or a Lamar Jackson. I mean, he obviously has arm talent. He's throwing, 2,000 plus yards per year, and definitely did not start as a true freshman. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I mean, I think I like him. If he falls to 23, I don't think I want to take him in the first round. I would take him maybe at 87 with our third round pick. I don't think he'll fall past the second, though, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that one. He's not a first round guy. That would definitely be a huge stretch if they took him there. But if they can get him in the third, that would be great for sure. He had a 69.3% completion percentage last season, up from 61 and 65 in his previous 2 seasons. So he's definitely got that on his side. Again, he had 27 touchdowns this past season to just 10 interceptions. And it looks like that all throughout his college era, too. He had 21-6 last year, 12-4 this previous season. Passer rating's been over 100 all 3 years of his college career at UCLA. I definitely like him. He would have to sit behind Kirk for a year. He's not someone where they'd trade Kirk and he can become a day one starter. They would have to develop him, but he does seem like a good project. If he's available at 87, I would be in on this. I like the idea.
Oh yeah, looking at like some of his strengths and weaknesses here. Mobility, is good with that. Shifty runner, and he's got a tight spiral on his. But one of the things is like his decision making can be problematic when he's not in rhythm. Is one of the weaknesses that is here on NFL.com. And then like throws off platform unnecessarily, and below average deep ball passer. So I don't know, that could be a little problematic if we had him thrown to Justin Jefferson like the deep ball there, but we'll see if the Vikings will even pull it off and get him. All right. So next we're going to go into the running backs. Mo Ibrahim from Minnesota with 4,668 yards and 53 touchdowns over 5 years.
All right. Yes, indeed. We have the Gophers running back, Mo Ibrahim. I for sure know a lot more about him. I'm sure they kind of maybe know more if you watch Gopher games. Again, we're all from Minnesota, so I've seen Gopher games. I'm a lot more familiar with Mo just because of how much I've seen on TV of him. He's definitely a bruiser of a guy. They used him a lot in college, and that's what I have a slight fear about. If the Vikings drafted him, it wouldn't be until I hope day 3, just because they used him a lot in college. You can see here, he had 320 rushing attempts last season. That doesn't include passes he really didn't have any. He only had 7 receptions, but I mean, same difference though. Still, he had 300 plus touches last season. you do have to be careful. Running backs fall off quickly, and they did use him a lot in college. So if they used him, or so if they were to draft him, I already kind of said this, but he's not a third round kind of a guy. To me, I'd look maybe more in like the fifth or sixth if they can get him there. I'd be cool with that. But again, just because he was used so much, that is a bit of a dangerous play. But he's definitely very explosive. Mo absolutely carried the Gophers for many games when Tanner Morgan wasn't very good this year. But so I like him a lot, but I don't like reaching for him. You'll see, as you've seen here, pretty common theme for me is just don't reach for players. Let them fall to you.
With the connection there, I'm looking here is like in 2021 season, he missed all but one game with an Achilles tear, and then he was sidelined by injury for at least one game in 4 out of the past 5 seasons. So he seems like he's fairly injury prone, and what's that going to do for the Vikings if he's always injured?
All right, and he only played one game in 2021 and only 7 in 2020. So, I mean, we don't need another injury-prone running back.
And we have solid running backs right now. Depends on what we do with Cook here.
He's gone.
I bet he will. But
We'll
we
delve
have
into that
we have
later,
Madison
probably.
there, and we don't really need another running back
Right.
besides him.
Yeah, we should probably just make that clear. Is if they got Mo Ibrahim, he's in no way, shape, or form going to become a starter. He's just going to be a depth guy, which is okay. They got Madison; he's their starter. They got Delvin Cook for now, but they won't soon. We'll probably talk more about that toward the end. So, but with that being said, that we've all shared our absolutely insightful opinions on Mo. We are now going to move into the next guy, next running back for Big Lou to share here.
We're actually not going to talk about any more running backs here.
Forget it. We're not talking about running backs. We're going to move to the receivers.
Receivers, yep. We're going to talk about Quentin Johnson from TCU. 2,168 yards, 14 touchdowns, played for 3 years there.
All right. So I kind of voiced my opinion last week, and I've kind of changed it. I like Quentin Johnson a lot. I said I wasn't as big. He's a big guy. I don't know if he's the type of guy to pair with Justin Jefferson, but I actually don't know if that's the case anymore. I think he's definitely a big guy. That means he has a huge catch radius. I think if he can get the field kind of short and medium length, kind of like, well, I'll say if he can get the field medium length, that can open up Justin Jefferson medium and long, especially if they have TJ Hawkinson running short routes. I like Quentin Johnston. Again, I don't have a good draft profile of him up right now, but I'll try and find one. Otherwise, Big Lou can share some more stuff about him.
Yeah, some of the weaknesses that he has is he struggles to create leverage and deception in his routes, which could be problematic if he's got a lockdown defender that's really good at coverage and he can't shake him. It's going to be hard for him to get open and find him the target.
I'm going to guess his NFL comp right now. They have his NFL comp on there, right?
I bet they do.
I'm going to guess it. Is it A.J. Brown?
Alshon Jeffrey.
It is indeed Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah.
From Lansing Irvine.
Well, I would compare him to A.J. Brown. He's a big body guy. He doesn't have a whole ton of separation, but he's fast over the top. I mean, you don't need to get that crazy separation when you have a big guy that can body up a corner or a safety, and he's got great hands too. You know, I mean, 2,000 yards over the past 3 years, that's very impressive. So
I think he'd pair well with Justin Jefferson. They don't need a small, not that Justin Jefferson necessarily small, but they don't need a small, elusive receiver like Justin Jefferson. I think they need a big body dude that can just move everywhere and catch balls thrown at him. And that's what, to me, Quentin Johnston seems like, because we know Justin Jefferson's not a big guy by any means. He's a small, elusive, fast-breaking player, where Quentin Johnston isn't quite like that, but that's okay that he's not like that, because it would complement well. It's like an A and a, how do we say it? It'd be like it's a good reference we can use here. It would be the Robin to Justin Jefferson's Batman. There we go.
One other weakness that might be concerning is inconsistent finishing catches through contact. So if he gets hit, is he going to hold onto the ball and give us the advantage, or is he going to turn those over?
Well, the thing for me is that the Vikings passing scheme is created to create space. So there's not going to be a whole ton of times where he's going to catch the ball and be immediately hit. I mean, how many times did you see that happen this year with Jefferson, Thielen, Osborne, whatever. I mean, they're not getting hit the second they're getting the ball.
Yeah, I think for a Minnesota scheme that would actually work pretty well because the safety more than likely is always going to be shadowing Justin Jefferson with the corner. So that is probably more than likely going to be leaving Quentin Johnston with more one-on-ones, where probably he's not going to be getting hit right away. He's probably not going to be double covered quite as often because they're going to be focusing on Justin Jefferson. So to me, again, I mean, it's a concern, but I don't think it's a huge red flag that we need to absolutely hang our hat over, something like that. With that, if no one else has any thoughts, Big Lou will continue us. Who's up next?
We're going to move on to USC's receiver Jordan Addison, who had 3,134 yards for 29 touchdowns and played for 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, like he's a good receiver. First, second round talent. He definitely played better at Pitt than he did at USC. For example, last year or 2021 at Pitt, he had 1,500 receiving yards, and this year at USC he had 875, with 17 touchdowns and 8 touchdowns respectively. I mean, I don't really know what happened with that transfer. I wasn't really into college football last year at all, so I didn't really see any of that. But I mean, Jordan Addison could be a good 1-2 punch with Justin Jefferson. He's a smaller guy. He's 5'11", 173. He didn't run a great 40, but I mean, 40 doesn't really matter, to be honest, as long as it's under like a 4.5, which I think it was.
4.49.
Yeah.
That's what I have here.
And so I think that he could be a good addition if we decided to take him.
Hey, Sam, what do you think his NFL comparison is?
Oh, jeez. Give me a team.
Seahawks.
Tyler Lockett.
Yeah. Yes. He's compared to Tyler Lockett. Comparison to Tyler Lockett.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, he seems a lot more of a Justin Jefferson type of a player than Quentin Johnston. In fact, here, the Draft Networks, their report, terrific spatial awareness and body control. That sounds to me just like Justin Jefferson. He's so good at being able to move his body in just such positions. That sounds like yoga speak, but I mean, just watch him and you'll know what I'm talking about. Again, it does say drops were an issue at Pitt. Kind of reminds me of Jalen Reagor, to be honest, but you can work on that. You can always catch a bunch of balls in a day, and yeah, they can work on that kind of stuff.
Anyone else have anything?
It's more of a mind. To me, it's more of a mind game. I've also read it.
Big Lou, move on.
Next, we are going to talk about Zay Flowers from Boston College. Guess who his NFL comparison is, Sam?
Give me a team.
Don't know who this guy is. Travis Benjamin.
Oh,
his
used to
NFL
be with the
comparison.
Chargers back in the day.
I've never heard of that guy before.
I haven't either, so.
Not a super prominent name,
Yeah.
but you know what? That's okay. So he had about a. We're gonna say he had about a 2 to 3. No, I said it wrong. About 2/3 of his snaps were from out wide, so that means he can play out wide and in the slot. He had 166 snaps from the slot last season, 337 out wide, making 506 total. So he can play both if needed. Good, just keep that in mind.
Does say he's short arms and small hands, which could be problematic if he's like trying to outreach someone for a contested ball or something. But one of his strengths is also he's very slippery as an open field runner. So that could be nice too. If you can get some space, you won't really have to worry about having the shorter arms, smaller hands to combat with contested balls so much.
So, according to PFF, he's got a couple things here. So it says where he wins is quickness. If Flowers doesn't want you to touch him, chances are you won't. What's his role? Movable weapon. So just like Joel said, he can play slot, he can play outside. Either way, he's going to make a difference in an offense. And what he can improve on is setting up routes. It says here, it's scary to think that Flowers has been as productive as he is without being a well-polished route runner. He's too often running the routes as they're drawn on paper without the thought of manipulating defenders. So obviously he's a very straightforward kind of guy is what I'm kind of getting from this. He wants to do it exactly how the coach tells him to do it. He's not going to adjust it a little bit to get away from a defender, which is going to be problematic at the next level. But see what happens.
He has. It also says here he has a tendency to rush his routes, but his ability to play with speed and move with athleticism makes him hard to read for defenders, which would be good. Because if he's kind of inconsistent and doesn't like show patterns or anything, that can be really good for an offense, so they can't pick up on tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else to add about Zay Flowers?
Mm-mm.
No.
Next is Darnell Washington from Georgia, tight end. He had 774 yards with 3 touchdowns over 3 years. I don't think the Vikings even really need to look this way for a tight end. We have T.J. Hawkinson, and we just picked up the Josh Oliver from the Ravens there, which is a blocker. I think we're fairly set on a tight end spot and don't even really need to look that way throughout the draft here. But
yeah, and I'm looking at PFF here, and it says that he could actually choose, if he wanted to become an actual offensive tackle. He's more of a blocking kind of guy. He's big. He's 6'7", 270 pounds. As we saw at the combine, he made that spectacular one-handed catch. We don't need him by any means. We have 2 great blocking tight ends, 1 tight end that's an excellent receiver as well. He's not the kind of guy that's going to burn linebackers, but I don't think he'll do much as a receiver in the NFL. For his stats, like you said, Big Lou, he had just over 700 yards, 3 touchdowns across 3 years. So, he's more like an extra offensive lineman in an offense.
And he's actually quick, too. He had a 4.6, 4.40, which for a guy his size is pretty good.
Yeah, as a blocking tight end, he seems great, but to me, he just doesn't necessarily fit what the Vikings are looking for, with them already having Josh Oliver and T.J. Hawkinson. So he can be a great player for a team. I just don't think the Vikings they're not going to look to him.
Next, we're moving on to our O-line, John Michael Schmitz from Minnesota. He played, how many years did he play? He's 6'3", 300 pounds, and 5'3", 540 he had.
So he's played over 400 snaps in each of the last 3 years. He played 6 games in 2020, and he has never played a position other than center, which we're obviously set on, re-signing Garrett Bradbury. He's allowed 2 sacks in 3 years, though, which is impressive, but then take it with a grain of salt. He is a center. There's not a whole lot of players rushing him. He's allowed a total of 14 hurries and 3 hits in the last 3 years as well. He's obviously a solid interior offensive lineman, but I really don't think that we're going to need him. If we were to take him, though, it would have to be at 87. We would never take him in the first round.
Mm-hmm. I know this isn't the end-all be-all, but seeing he has a PFF grade of 92.3, hard to come by a grade that high. So clearly, PFF grades him very high. I said it last week, and this is also the same as we just talked about with Darnell Washington. Great player, not for the Vikings. They just don't have a fit for him. But definitely John Michael Schmitz is going to be a great player in the NFL. I can already tell you that.
All right. Next, we are going to go to an edge rusher, Keon White from Georgia Tech. He had 11 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recovers, 1 interception over 3 years here.
Yes. Keon White, he'd be a first-round pick if they went with him. Let me just pull up a couple things about him here. If anyone else wants to take it away while I get this up.
So Keon White, he's got an overall PFF grade of 72.6, which isn't phenomenal. He's played in 16 games in the past 2 years. So 2021, he only played 4 games. He's had just over 600 snaps. He's got almost all of his snaps were from outside the tackles. Otherwise, it was barely a little bit over the tackle, and then a few off the ball and a few over the B gap, which is between the tackles and the guards. He had This year, 2020, he had 7 sacks, 4 hits, 30 hurries, and 1 pass batted down. I think the 30 hurries is what we got to look at here. I mean, that's pretty impressive from any edge rusher. 30 hurries in one season. I mean, obviously, he gets close to the quarterback. He's probably going up against really good tackles. Yeah, they played some really good teams this year. But yeah, I mean, not really much more to say about him.
But yeah, I don't know if the Vikings necessarily need an edge rusher like him because we have Daniil Hunter and Zadarius Smith. I just don't think we need another edge rusher unless we get rid of one of those two, which I don't really see us doing here this year.
You just wait. I have a Zadarius Smith related prediction coming up
go
later in the
ahead.
show. But I don't know if he'd necessarily be a schematic fit with him lining up outside of tackle a whole bunch. They would have to have him a hand in the dirt. Again, since they already have Z and Daniil, if they were to keep both of them, it doesn't seem here. Again, he has no off-ball snaps, so I don't know with that 3-4 scheme they have. I don't necessarily know how he'd be able to fit in it, but we just have to see. I don't know if he'd necessarily work with the Vikings, but it does definitely seem like a good defensive lineman player. Just not necessarily to me the greatest schematic fit for this team.
Yeah. So next we're gonna talk about safety Brian Branch from Bama. He had 172 total tackles, 4 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, and 2 interceptions over 3 years.
So I'm going to kind of lead the charge on him. I hope that he falls to 23. I really do, because if he does, I want him badly. Brian Branch is phenomenal. He plays mostly from the slot. He had 569 of his 768 snaps from the slot in 2022. Honestly, I wouldn't even really call him a safety. I know that's what he's listed as, but he plays as a slot corner. At a first look, he's 6', 190, so he's got the size of a slot corner. I mean, he's been incredibly effective over the last 3 years. He's missed 4 tackles in the past 3 years, guys. That's what we need in our secondary. People that aren't going to miss tackles. Brian Branch is my favorite defensive back in the draft.
One couple concerns on him. I'm looking at the NFL Next Gen Stat score breakdown. His production score was a 96 out of 100, which is not first among quarterbacks. But his athleticism score was 32nd with only a score of 58. And then like his 40-yard wasn't anything like phenomenal, so 4.58. That's still good, but I just don't see like his strength could be a little lacking. He can always put on a little muscle there, but that could be one thing.
This to me seems like a perfect Brian Flores type of a guy.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of said this I think last week is definitely Brian Flores is going to be trying to implement the idea of your position isn't just your position. You have to be able to do multiple things. Brian Branch is the literal prototype of that phrase right there. On the Draft Network, his ideal role that they've listed is starting safety / nickel. So they have him, he could play both. Seems to me Brian Flores would love this kind of a dude. Seems like he can move around well. Yeah, I had something more I was going to add. Yeah, he played 569 snaps in the slot last year, 136 in the box, moved around. Seems like, just kind of repeating myself to be honest at this point, but seems like a perfect Brian Flores guy where he can do one thing, he can do another thing, he can do everything, he can move. Seems like my kind of a guy as well. I like him a lot. If he was at 23, I'd very seriously consider drafting him.
Yeah, looking at the strength here on NFL.com, the first strength he has on here is his football intelligence is through the roof, which that's pretty good. If you're in the NFL, you got to be smart, but if you're like one of the smarter ones, that can really help you out in the long run. I think the Vikings could really use that.
He's also the best tackling defensive back PFF has graded, missing only 4 tackles on 174 career tackle attempts. I mean, he's sticky in coverage. He's a strong dude. I mean, I don't think he'll make it to 23. I hope he does. Really hope he does. It says here that he's most drafted by the Eagles, the Jaguars, and the Lions. I really hope that he falls to us though, because if he does, I think Brian Flores will be in Kevin O'Connell's ear and Kwesi's ear and be like, "Hey, we need this guy. I need him for my defense."
Yeah, the only problem is he's probably not going to fall at 23.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we'll be talking about, I'm going to mutilate this last name. Cornerback Jarek Bernard Converse, is it? I don't know if I said that wrong. Is
Yeah,
that?
that's right.
Oh, wow, it is right. From LSU, 241 total tackles, 5 sacks, 1 forced fumble, 1 fumble recovery, 4 interceptions over the last 5 years.
Yeah, he's a good player. I mean, 241 total tackles. That's really good. 5 sacks, so he plays in slot quite a bit as well, is what I'm seeing from those stats. Um, yeah, I think he'd be a good addition to the Vikings at 87 or even later in the draft.
Anything to add to that, Joel?
Not really. I guess it seems like more of a mid to late round pick, if anything. But yeah, I guess I kind of have a no opinion, to be honest, on him. If they draft him, cool. If they don't, not the biggest loss in the world to me.
All right. Next, we'll talk about cornerback Emmanuel Forbes from Mississippi State. 149 total tackles, 1 sack, 14 interceptions, 6 touchdowns over 3 years. Didn't he have 3 pick sixes in that 1 year?
He had 3 picks.
Yeah.
Okay, so he had 3 pick sixes in 2021 or 2022. Well, these stats definitely aren't right.
No, what if he played offense?
He,
Like you never know.
He must have. Oh yeah. Oh, he did play offense. Oh geez.
Wait, we're
So he
He's
had.
versatile.
oh yeah, he did.
So he had over 100 receptions over these past 3 years.
So he played a little bit of both ways there.
I
Yeah.
guess so. With actually, he's got like 1,300 receiving yards, so better than some of the receivers on our list.
Wow.
He had, let's see, 14 interceptions over the past 3 years with 14 touchdowns. So he's also, wow, he allowed a passer rating of 44.7 this year. Very impressive. The thing for me, he plays out wide like 99% of his snaps. He'll play, outside corner. The thing for me is that he's too small. He's 166 pounds, 6'1". I mean, he needs to be, in my opinion, at 6'1", he needs to be at least 180 to 190 pounds to be able to be an effective corner in the NFL. But I also don't want him to lose some of his speed because he's fast. But I mean, I don't know. I would say I don't want him at 23. I don't think he's the best.
You know who he reminds me of? Trayvon Diggs. Based on the things I've seen, he reminds me a lot of Trayvon Diggs. Again, like we said, he was a receiver in high school. Clearly, he was a receiver in college as well with some of the numbers he's put up. And it says here, I'm on the Draft Network, it says their top reasons to buy in include ball production, and he's a ball hawk, is pretty much what I'm trying to say here. But some reasons for concern is that he's very aggressive, and that can be dangerous at times, which to me reminds me of Trayvon Diggs. There are definitely plenty of times Trayvon Diggs gets burned in coverage because he's too aggressive, but then you see flashes when he gets all those interceptions because he's such a ball hawk, because he's so aggressive. So that's just my comparison there. Trayvon Diggs isn't necessarily my type of a corner, if I'm being honest. I don't know if Brian Flores would necessarily be a Trayvon Diggs kind of a guy, or in this case, an Emmanuel Forbes kind of a guy. I wouldn't look toward Emmanuel Forbes' direction. I think they need guys more that can cover rather than get interceptions, especially when they have Harrison Smith on the back end. And we know how good he is at being a safety and ball hawk as well.
Forbes 40-yard time was a 4.35. Just quick, which if he could put on some weight, a muscle without sacrificing that speed, that'd be huge for him.
But that's the concern: is are they going to be able to put some meat on this guy's bones? And that was a concern with Devontae Smith coming into the NFL too. And I think he's gained a little bit of weight, but he's still a small guy. I mean, he's 170-ish. Should look that up.
I got you.
So he's 6 foot 170. So he's still a small guy, but he's shown that he's incredibly effective in the NFL. So yeah, he's gained. Oh, I guess he's only gained 4 pounds since his combine.
Yeah.
But yep, he's still shown that he can be incredibly effective on the Eagles' offense. Yeah, not really a whole lot more to say about him.
Next, we have cornerback Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State. 115 total tackles, 1 sack, 1 interception, 1 fumble recover, and 1 forced fumble. He played for the last 4 years.
So Joey Porter Jr. ran the fastest 40 in the combine. It was a.
I'm seeing
No,
here
it's not. I'm seeing 4.46.
Yeah,
well,
that's what I'm
so
seeing
no.
as this week.
Oh,
So
dude.
that's
I
not
don't
the fastest.
I think it was him.
Who was the guy that ran the fastest 40?
All right.
His father was a former Pro Bowler.
Mm-hmm. Holy cow. NFLDraftBuzz.com has so many strengths, it's actually insane. They have got a lot of strengths
Oh my
listed.
gosh.
Jeez.
Well, he's currently ranked the 18th player in this draft. He has an overall PFF grade of 73.2. He doesn't look like a huge impact player on the stat sheet, though. He also did play offense the last 3 years as well, just like Emmanuel Forbes. He had, let's see here, 69 receptions over the past 3 years for just over 100 yards and 6 touchdowns. He's had 1 interception in the past 3 years. He's almost always lined up outside at corner. I mean, his stats don't jump out at me. It says that he's more of a press guy, but he needs to improve on needless grabbing. It says Porter was lucky to be flagged only 3 times this past season, as that certainly won't be the case with his play style at the next level. He needs to reel in his tendency to yank jerseys to stick with receivers out of breaks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm watching actually a short highlight video on him, and that's exactly what I was going to mention. Is he seems to be handsy and grabsy potentially at times. Now, I'm no expert by any means, but another person I think of when it comes to handsy and grabsy is actually a great player. Sauce Gardner can be at times, and he doesn't often get flagged for it, but sometimes he does get away with getting handsy with receivers. Now, I'm in no way, shape, or form saying Joey Porter's as good as Sauce Gardner, because we know Sauce Gardner is a great player. Joey Porter probably won't be on the board at 23. If he is, Kwesi will definitely take a big look into him. But I don't think he'll be there at 23 anyway, so I don't think it's that much of question at this point for them.
So this player that I want to bring up another player that did not have a meeting with the Vikings, but is also a handsy cornerback, and his name is Travius Hodges-Tomlinson from TCU. I really, really liked him. So he had 5 interceptions over the past 3 years. He's played it both ways. He had over 190 yards with 389 yards in 2021 on offense. So, I mean, another two-way guy. His main concern is his size. He's 5'8", 178, but he's the most physical corner I've ever seen. He reminds me a lot of Duke Shelley, if Duke Shelley were playing against college players. I mean, he's small, 5'8", 178 is really small, but his biggest concern with the NFL right now is that most of his yardage allowed last year came from losses at the catch point. They say it's all from his size. I think that he would be great at 87. I don't think he'll fall down to that. He's currently listed at 59 per PFF. But his average draft position, I think his ADP is 84.2. So if he could fall to 87, I think he's a guy we should definitely consider.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Got anything else to add to that, Joel?
Let's move on to the
I
next one.
actually might, depending on. Okay, this is what I thought was Joey Porter. This is back to Joey Porter, but then I was going to look up Travius Hodges-Tomlinson. Joey Porter has a height of 6'2" and a listed weight here of 193. So that got me into thinking. Cam Dantzler is 6'2" and 190. So if you want to think of his size, think of Cam Dantzler. To me, Cam Dantzler always seemed like a small player, but maybe that's just me and eye test. But so that was just what I thought of when I was looking up his height and weight, was compare him to Cam Dantzler, and sure enough, they are very similar. Now, as far as Travis Hodges-Tomlinson is concerned, he's 5'9", 181, so he's actually even smaller than that. So that concerns you. Small build. He is small build. Usually small build means you have to play aggressive because it's really the only way you can. And 5'9", that's what Duke Shelley is, I believe. He's 5'9" or 8 as well.
Yep. All right. So the next person we're going to talk about is cornerback Kelly Ringo from Georgia, with 76 total tackles, 1 sack, 4 interceptions, and 1 touchdown. Played for 2 years.
So Ringo, another corner that's played both ways. So over the past 2 seasons, he's only played 2 seasons. He had 65 receptions for just over 130 yards. 65 receptions for just over 850 yards with 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. It's allowed passer ratings of 63.2 and 68.4 in 2021 and 2022. And he's almost always aligned outside at corner. He's about 6'2", 207 pounds. I think him at 87 will be another good pickup. I don't think he'll fall past the 60s, 70s maybe. I don't think he'll go very far down the board.
One thing, too, was weakness. He was called for 9 penalties in 2022 in college, which is not great when you think about it. And one thing, body control gets sloppily from slide-to-slide shuffles. He can, if he's all sloppy. Well,
keep going.
Like that.
Keep going.
Just keep going.
If he's not under control and everything there, I can see where the penalties come in there. So.
Yeah, I think, to me, Kelly Ringo falls in a weird draft position of where the Vikings aren't really going to be in a position to take him. Because if they trade back, I don't think the Vikings are going to trade out of the first round. They're just going to trade to the end like they did last year so they can have access to the 5th-year option on the player they draft. Whereas Ringo's probably going to fall out of the first round, but he's probably not going to be there at 87. So he's just kind of in the weird middle ground. I don't think that they're going to chart into. But that's just your draft position update from me.
All right. I believe that is all we have scheduled on here, unless you guys want to talk about anyone else. Otherwise, I'd say we can move to our pick segment.
Good.
Our prediction segment.
Yeah, we're doing 2 each, right?
We can do 2 each.
All right, perfect. We're each going to go around the room here. We're going to make we're going to make 2 predictions each. Also, again, like I said last week, we have a spreadsheet full of all of our predictions. His predictions, mine, and his as well as our listener ones. We elected not to have a listener on today, but we will again next week. So far, everybody's still at 0% because nothing has come off the board yet. We're only 2 weeks into it, so we have very limited sample size of predictions. But here we go. So unleashing our 2 predictions. Who would like to start us off?
I'll kick her off. All right, so my first prediction is going to be draft related. So this prediction is that the Vikings will make more than 5 picks in the 2023 draft.
I definitely think that's going to happen.
Yes.
Yeah. I feel like very likely that one's going to hit.
Well, that's kind of what I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
Saying that as a prediction. Thought I'd choose something safe.
All right, you want to go or you want me to go?
I can go. My first pick today is the Vikings will not draft a quarterback in this draft.
Interesting one.
That's another.
I'd be intrigued with that one if they don't
think
even
that's
at all.
also a safe bet.
Because,
I don't
know if they're like necessarily in a position with the draft picks they have to pick up a good one that would fit their offense. Honestly, if we get a quarterback this year, it's more than likely going to be off the trade than anything. Is what I think. But
I think even if it's in the mid to late rounds, even like we talked about with DTR and some of the other guys, they still could look to the mid to late rounds for one. No matter what, I'm going to disagree with you on that. I think they're going to draft a quarterback, whether it's the first round or mid to late rounds. Especially if they don't extend Kirk Cousins, they're not going to want to throw their quarterback next year assuming they draft one. They're not going to want to throw him into the ring with no experience. So I think they're going to look to one this year, no matter what. But with that being said, I'm going to head to my first prediction. We got a really interesting report about Delvin Cook from former Vikings writer Jeremy Fowler. Said that the Vikings are going to look to trade Delvin Cook, and if they can't, there's possibility he will be released by the draft. So my initial prediction was going to be Delvin Cook won't be on the roster by April 30th, but then that seems like too much of a layup now. So I expanded it. Zadarius Smith and Delvin Cook will both not be on the roster on April 30th, which is 2 weeks from today, first day after the draft. I don't think Delvin Cook will be there, and to me, Zadarius Smith seems like a draft day kind of a trade. So that is my 2-item parlay. Zadarius and Delvin will both not be on the roster by April 30th.
All right, so for my second pick, I really like talking about the Vikings secondary because I think that they're going to be a really special unit. So I am going to say that Byron Murphy will lead the Vikings in interceptions this next year.
Interesting one. Yeah, I feel like really it'll just be between him and Harrison Smith more than likely, but
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting one.
Possibly Lewis Seen, though. You
Could
never know.
be, I suppose.
And if we draft a corner, I mean, let's say we take a guy like Deontay Banks.
Mm-hmm. I
Always
suppose
a
it's possible.
possibility.
For my second one today, Kirk Cousins' touchdown to interception ratio will be 3-1 this year. Over 3-1 or over.
Okay.
This year. I looked up the stats earlier. In previous years, like this year, he had 29 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. In 2021, he had 33 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. In 2020, 35 to 13, and 2019, 26 to 6. So he has done it before, the 3-1, but you never know. It's a coin flip with him. It seems maybe every other year, and depends on a lot of things this year. But that is my prediction.
They're gonna look up. I'm kind of curious what his career touchdown to interception ratio is. 22. In his career, he's got just a 2.4 to 1 interception or touchdowns to interceptions. So interesting one. I think he'll probably hit that. Wait, what was it again last year? I mean,
It was just over 2.
I still think he'll probably hit it.
Yeah.
But yes, with that being said, I'm going to head to my third and final prediction. This one is going to tickle the fancy of Sam here. He absolutely does not like Jalen Carter and Will Levis. And therefore, I thought perfect to write up a Jalen Carter and Will Levis prediction. This is going to counter, I believe, last week I think you made one about both of them. Let me look here.
I made one about Will Levis not going in the first 20.
And I believe someone else maybe not. I thought someone made a Jalen Carter, maybe not. Okay, I guess no one did make a Jalen Carter. But this is my prediction. Jalen Carter and Will Levis will both be selected in the top 10 picks. I figured I'd counter him. He's not a Jalen Carter guy. He's not a Will Levis guy. He says Will Levis won't be in the top 20, and I'm here to say, no, that's not the case. Will Levis and
I don't think that's gonna
hey,
happen.
you never know though. He could fall in the 10 to 50 or 10 to 20 range, and then we're both wrong.
Yeah, you're right.
But anyway, so yeah, that is our two predictions.
The 4th round, and every other team would be better off.
That is our 2 great predictions that we each unleashed. Be sure to be back next week where we'll all have 2 or 3 more. But with that being said, we're going to wrap it up with our football trivia segment. I don't know if you have it up on your computer, but if you do, make sure you turn it so.
I know. I'm going to turn it. I don't want to spoil this one.
Yeah, I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah,
I need a piece of scratch paper,
I
Joel.
got
we
some.
have one of them today. This will be a interesting
Hey,
one.
Lou, you want to hand me a pencil from back there?
Here's
We
the
got
second
one.
one right here.
Oh, okay.
We were prepared. Dan.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. So we are going to. What's our creative way of deciding who's going
Well-
to start first.
Well, hold on. So is this person like, or what are the parameters for this person?
Past and present Minnesota Vikings.
And it's all players.
Yes.
Before we
But-
start, we should explain the rules. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be guessing a player. Big Lou's come up with some clues. Well, not really clues, actually.
Just
Me and Sam are each going to get 5 questions.
guesses.
So a total of 10. We're each going to alternate back and forth. We get to ask a question, and it has to be in a yes or no, or really just an A, B, one or the other type of a format. Can't be open-ended, like how many passing yards did this person have last year? That doesn't count. It has to be, did this person have over 3,000, for example? So we're each going to do that. We can guess whenever, but whoever's turn it is gets first dibs if they want to guess. So that's kind of the parameters. We're just going to be guessing who it is. So with that being said, we are going to, this is the decision. I'm going to flip this notebook, and that's going to decide who guesses first. You pick
Yellow
top or
head.
bottom.
I'll take yellow.
All right. It landed
Yellow.
on the top. Therefore,
See it?
Sam will be kicking us
Two are
off with our first question.
Okay, is this player is this person currently on the Vikings roster?
no.
Was this player drafted by the Minnesota Vikings?
Yes.
Is this player a current NFL player?
No.
Did this player play for teams in their career not other than the Minnesota Vikings?
Yes.
I already have an idea, but still really far-fetched.
Was this player an offensive skill player?
Yes.
This one might decide whether I take a guess or not. Did this player retire within the past 5 years?
So within
So has this player pretty much have they played in the NFL between the era of 2018 and now? Did they play during that time period?
No.
Okay, I might have an idea who it is.
how many questions do you got now?
3
Six.
each.
3, 6.
Did this player in any season have more than 2,000 yards from scrimmage?
Yards from scrimmage? No.
I'm taking a guess.
Yes.
All these line up. I think I'm gonna have. I have a guess of who it is. Is this player Randy Moss?
It is not.
Oh,
Oh, wait. So does that count as one of your
Right,
questions?
I'd say no.
No,
We
okay.
just said he just gets first dibs, but he cannot guess until you guess again.
okay. Oh yeah, you're
So
right.
now
We
I
did
get
make
to
that
steal
up.
one of his picks.
No,
basically.
No.
He can ask a question
So I
here
keep asking questions. I just can't guess a player until you
Yes.
do now.
until you do.
Oh, okay. I see.
Dang, everything fit into
I've
Randy
asked 4
Moss.
questions. So now is it
Joel,
my
Joel
guess or
gets
is your
his
guess
fourth
now?
question.
Yeah.
Then you each get one
Oh,
more.
so I get to
Oh,
ask
boy.
again anyways. Dang, I thought it was gonna be Randy Moss. Everything about Randy Moss fit into that thing there.
And yards from scrimmages, receiving, rushing, passing.
Yes.
Okay.
Did this player play for the Vikings for 5 or more seasons?
No.
Okay.
Ooh.
You know what I think? We don't have to do a question limit. We can just do it until someone guesses.
Well,
Yeah.
no, I get the point if you make it past 10,
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
but then we will go.
But then we
until
can
you
just
guys-
keep going.
yes,
Okay.
We will go until you guys get it.
Wait.
Wait, what was my last question? I already forgot. Oh,
Uh,
5 years.
5 seasons.
Not-
Okay. This is a
within-
clarifying question. Joel, are you
Mhm.
saying consecutive or total?
I guess I was thinking consecutive, but I didn't think about the possibility that they could have had multiple
Because
stints.
they could have been, you know.
I'm assuming Big Lou probably would have thought of it as total, though. But maybe not.
Can we clarify that?
which way do you want to put it? So you want like just 5 or well, there's. He
But
said
can we clarify total or consecutive without losing a question?
sure.
Okay, was it total?
It was total. He has not played 5 years.
Okay.
Of Vikings.
Okay.
Total.
I get one more guess, and then do we each get a guess at the player?
Sure. And
Wait,
then
can I Google not like something? It's just something about these clues. I have an idea of a player, but I don't know. There's one thing I don't know if they fit into. Can I do that, or is that against the rules here?
That's probably against the rules.
Yeah,
right?
we're-
Fine. I won't do it.
yeah.
I won't do it.
Hmm.
That seems like a little bit cheating. If
It's
you
because
can
I don't.
go-
It's because I don't know when this player retired. That's the question that I have.
Okay, this is going to be a big stretch. Was this player a wide receiver?
Yes.
Okay.
I think I know who.
The
it is.
player I have in mind is a wide receiver, but I don't know when they retired. That's the problem I have. So it was right around the 2018.
Joel, you have one question left.
And then do we both get one guess?
Yes.
Okay.
Sam gets
But I get
first
to guess
yes.
first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, we would probably rock, paper, scissors for it.
Yeah. Or you'd both write it down or write it down on a piece of paper. I'd look at them. If you both have them right, then figure out something. But
Did this player play in any Pro Bowls with the Vikings?
yes, with the Vikings, yes.
Okay. Okay, then that eliminates the person I think that I had in mind.
I have two people that I think it could be.
I had an
I
idea of
don't know
one, but
how
I don't
long
think it's
they
that many.
each played for the Vikings.
I don't think it's
though.
that many more.
Would you like to guess one of them?
Okay, so I'm just gonna level with you guys. My two guesses right now are Chris Carter and Percy Harvin. I don't know how long Percy Harvin played with the Vikings. I don't think it was very long.
I feel like he would have had over 2,000 yards from scrimmage, though.
I don't
At
know
least-
though.
But because he had so many, because he was, well, I mean, he was predominantly a kick returner.
But I don't think he counted return yards.
Does that count as yards from scrimmage by
I don't
definition,
think
though?
so. Because I think it's
dang,
just
you're
for
right.
for receivers. I think it's just receiving and rushing yards.
Okay, I guess, yeah.
But then Chris Carter, I know he played for more than 5 seasons with the Vikings, right?
Mhm.
So my guess is going to be Percy Harvin.
You are correct.
Yes!
You are correct.
The person I had in mind was Darius Wright. And then when you
Oh.
said, and then I had I used to love Darius Wright back in the day. Then when you said he made a Pro Bowl with Minnesota, I said, I don't think he was good enough to make
Percy
any
Harvin-
Pro Bowls.
Percy Harvin had the 2009 Pro Bowl with also NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year. But yeah, his primarily was known for his kick returning.
Yes.
He was insane at kick returning.
All right, I'm going to look up now, when did Darius Wright retire? I had questions about that.
Because
Because it was right around.
he had 1,100 yards in 2009 of kickoff yards, and he had 790 yards. So he wouldn't have even been over 2,000 or with the rushing.
Darius Wright didn't retire until 2019. Interesting. He was the player I had in mind for a long while. Well, I had Randy Moss because up until that point, not with 5+ years Minnesota, up until that point, Randy Moss fit into every single category. And then when you said I knew Randy Moss consecutively was consecutively and totally.
Once we had like up to skill players, I was like, oh, it's Randy Moss. It's
I
definitely
had Randy Moss in mind for a while, and then when you said no, then I switched to Darius Wright maybe.
And I was like, no more than 2,000 yards because I was thinking Adrian Peterson then.
Yeah.
Oh,
One thing about Harvin, it was he became the first Viking ever to score a touchdown on each of his first 3 games, as well as the youngest player to ever return, or second youngest player to ever return a kickoff for a touchdown.
Adrian Peterson never crossed my mind because of the fact that he's a current player. He hasn't technically retired, and either way, I ask, has he retired in the past 5 years?
Right?
Yeah, but he has played within the past 5 years.
Yeah.
So I really never thought about Adrian Peterson being an option, but that was a good one, Big Blue.
Almost got you.
That was
Right at the end.
great, Big Lou.
That was right at the end.
Mhm.
All right. Well, any of you guys got anything else to add?
With
in
that
this
said,
episode?
I don't believe anyone sent a text message in. If not,
Nope.
we are gonna end it. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to be on a future episode, you want to call in for an opportunity to make some predictions with us, feel free to text us. The phone numbers in the live chat is pinned message. As always, text us if you want to have an opportunity to be on. Otherwise, that is going to do it for Big Lou, for Sam, and for me. That is going to do it. Have a good night, everybody. Peace out. As always,